What are we talking about?
Oh, Xenobots.
Xenobots. Go on, explain.
Take it away, Bri.
All right. So today, well, this morning, I was browsing the Yahoo News feed, and I came across something called Xenobots Reproduce, and I was
Am I
like,
gonna enjoy this or no? Is this something I'm
yeah,
gonna?
it's actually pretty crazy.
Okay.
This is legitimately the future. Like, it's either our downfall or our like grand rising.
Downfall.
Grand
I would
rising.
argue
Like
for downfall,
grand
but
rising.
possibly. All right. So what they did was, they're trying to come up with things for obviously like infectious diseases like COVID. So in 2020, they announced that they developed these Xenobots, which are biological artificial intelligence, which in itself is insane, right?
Mhm.
So now what they're doing now, and like with all the madness of like COVID and everything like that, it kind of got brushed under the rug. Like nobody gave a shit about it. But what they were doing was they have these different molecules that were able to come together in a way that it developed. They needed it was like a shape that they needed to form for this, but like human beings weren't able to conceive what the shape should be. So what they did was they put it through a computer, like a supercomputer pretty much, and the supercomputer was constantly testing out different variations of like shapes and forms that this, I don't want to call it artificial life, but I don't even know what to call it because they're creating something. But
It basically said it's a living machine,
yeah.
kind of.
So it's not a machine in the sense of like it has parts and it was put together. It's a machine in the sense that they're trying to control it to have it be task oriented, right? So now these things are really small. So it took, I think it said around 2 or 3 billion different projections by the computer for it to actually come up with a shape that works for this living thing, right? So the idea of creating these things was they wanted to be able to go into someone's body, sort of like nanotechnology, to go into someone's body. And let's say, Scott, you got in a car accident, right? And in the car accident, you destroyed something in your spine. Now you're paralyzed. So now what what these things would do, the one important piece I left out of it, they took it from the stem cells of some frog. I think it was a European frog.
It says the raven African clawed frog.
Yeah.
From the sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria, Sudan area.
Yeah. So what they did was they took the stem cells, because those are cells that don't have any assignment. It's like a blank slate. So it could be anything, right? So what they did was they're hoping that these stem cells could then be injected into someone who got into a car accident who is now paralyzed, and those stem cells could go inside the body, repair what needs to be repaired specifically, and then they can, the way the terminology they used, extinguish them or kill them. But they need a way to control them first. Now, what the story was today is these Xenobots, when given the proper materials, were moving on their own and replicating themselves. Like not instructed. Like they weren't given like a program.
They had a mind of their own.
They were doing it on their own. Now these things
for us humans,
these things that were only living a week at a time that they were measuring, right? But my thing is with this, now this is where we can go either way with it. So now you have these things that the Xenobots, right? So now you inject that into someone's body. They think they have full control of this thing, right? It goes in, it does its work, it does whatever it wants, right? What if they don't turn off and they're able to move throughout, like it was, say it was inside you and it was moving through your body and it went up into your brain. Now, that sounds to me sort of like a zombie apocalypse type thing, right?
Which you're smiling, seeming like you're rooting for.
It re-scrambles your brain, you're saying, and it makes
Well, I wouldn't say it re-scrambles your brain. I'm saying they take control,
So
because
it's an alien invasion.
not aliens.
like the faculty.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, pretty much. But the craziest thing of all is the fact that they've created life,
Yeah,
like literally
they
from
played
next to
God,
nothing. Yeah.
which
I
is
mean, they've
understandable.
already tried to, they've already been doing stuff with like cloning and the sheep and all that stuff, pigs and growing ears on the backs of rats and stuff like that. But like, this is something that is completely unprecedented and nobody really is talking about it at all.
They were talking about stem cell research. I remember that was like a big hot topic in when George Bush was president. Like people were saying, like the religious people were saying that you're playing God because if somebody like breaks their back, and then like you said, you could kind of find out ways to like fix them or grow organs and stuff like that, or clone people because God's the only one that should make people. It's interesting to see where it is now.
Well,
Maybe they're right because that's terrifying.
They're already doing like stem cell research. Like there's places, there are some places in America, but like it's very few and far between. But like if you go down to like South America and stuff like that, there's actually really, really advanced doctors down there that are there was a famous one, Mel Gibson, his father had something going on. He had some degenerative bone disease and he took his father down there, and I mean, he's got the money for it. They're extremely expensive, like procedures and stuff like that. But what they do is they inject you with the stem cells like directly into the areas. And he was able to heal like years and years of damage in a couple sessions. And it's like, that's kind of like the fountain of youth in a way.
Yeah.
But it's a fucked up way how you get the stem cells because none of us have them. The only way you can get them, and that was the joke on South Park, was when Christopher Reeves was breaking the babies and breaking their spine.
that episode was actually on today, and it was on at work. Like it was when Larry King had him out, and he was just sitting there. So it's horrible. It's just horrible. That was the Crips episode with Jimmy and Timmy. That was the same episode. But Brian, it seems like your obsession with aliens went away after June 1st when they didn't discover anything. So is this your new thing?
Listen, I wouldn't say that was when my obsession with aliens went away. I think my thing with aliens is like, who really cares, honestly? Like at this point though, it's like if something is here, it's not doing anything to me. If they're not here or if they're out there or if there's fucking, I don't know, Chinese pilots flying around in UFOs just fucking with Americans and the rest of the world. Whatever, man. Who gives a shit?
You think people like, so this is essentially a programmable organism. Like it's living robots made of massive cells working in coordination, help unlock the miss. I mean, it is crazy.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you in your opinions, because I'm not on the side of the religious fanatics, like with the whole stem cell thing. Like, if you could help someone walk again, more power to you, like go for it. Like, why wouldn't you? But like, do you think people should be this able to do shit like this? Like, where it's almost like where does it lead to in the end though? Like, you could see
the only issue I see would be population control if nobody dies.
Yeah,
that's crazy. But like, think about if this could help people reproduce, or if you know that your baby has some disease, or it's going to be, mentally disabled, and you could do something to make it.
Problem is, there's always one person who will fuck this up and use it and become an evil motherfucker with it and just take it to another level.
Yeah, but if you see, what I forget, I think it's Tufts University and somewhere in Harvard, but it's also a federally funded program.
Okay.
So they've already got their hands in it. Like they're not.
Yeah.
This is a technology or a treatment or a fucking medicine that's going to be highly, highly sought after if it's something that's
that won't make it to us. That's like billionaires going into space. Like I'm not going to be like, hey, my spine doesn't work. And be like, all right, Eric, here, take this little.
Yeah, here you go. Just go home. You'll be good in a week.
I'm like, yeah, we're gonna own your life and your house and everything that you ever need.
I'm looking at right now like a layout of the evolutionary organisms Like, you know, and how do people, I mean, we always say this, you know, there's people who are smart and then people who are like, you can't teach this, right? You can't teach this. Like doing this, is this something you're kind of just naturally born with, being this intelligent? Like how much do you really learn about this shit to make
I think it's a mix of both. I think it's a mix of both in the sense of like, you're definitely born with the questions inside of you, but then at the same time, you're born with that ability to read information, retain it, and then regurgitate it, you know, and really understand. I think mainly having a true understanding of it more than anything, because a lot of the shit is really hard to grasp. Like, I remember taking like anatomy and physiology, and when you learn about just like bones alone, like the cells that are inside bones do fucking incredible. There's, as we sit here right now, like there's a billion processes happening just to keep us here sitting. Like it's astounding that somebody has figured out all the way down to the final like blueprints. Like somebody figured out like the double helix DNA, like, and then coded it. How the fuck are you smart enough to code DNA and then start looking for it in other beings, in other creatures that are on the planet, and say, oh, who do we match up close up with? Oh, we're the closest to pigs, even though everyone thinks it's chimps.
I kind of want to get someone on, like a couple of journalists on, who could actually explain this, which I'm gonna try to do. Because it is kind of something we shouldn't.
Well, even CERN in Switzerland, right? Like they are smashing particles, and they found like the God particle. Like that shit's crazy too. That they, and like, you know what's really crazy? That point, and when they created the atomic bomb, they weren't sure that it wouldn't create like a black hole and destroy the entire world, and they just did it. So maybe yeah, they were like, I don't know, this could either end World War II or kill everybody. Either way, the world be over. Yeah.
Either way, we'll see.
So we should know about this stuff, especially if, you know, if the fact that COVID was created in a lab, we should know this shit. You know what I mean? They shouldn't just do it.
Brian, you're on the side of everything's planned and there's an end game, no matter what. So what do you think's the government's end game here?
Regarding
it's always I don't even think that there's necessarily some specific end game. I think it's just needing to rely on them for everything. It's never going to be like, that's my biggest argument against cryptocurrency, is if it's this big secret that's going to blow up and everybody's going to be millionaires, like, does the government want that? They're not going to allow that to happen.
Not everybody's going to be millionaires. No way.
No, but you know what I'm saying though? Like, I'm talking about a great transition of wealth that they're not in control.
You could say that with like the .com though too. People were, and like all that, like my mom's best friend growing up, they created, like he invested, I don't know, a couple $1,000s into like the air. And then that was like satellite space, and he became a millionaire overnight. Like it's just that time, you know, .com, like Elon Musk, like those guys that just are tech people. Like, you think Mark Zuckerberg should have been where he's at now? You know, if you, it's just that point where it's just strike where the iron's hot, throw some money around and let it go. But they're definitely going to not let everybody do it. There's going to be, they're going to manipulate it. Even India banned it because they're making their own. They're making their own crypto. So they banned all other cryptos.
I think it's another thing of just like power to the people, and it won't be allowed. Like that's the main thing. Yeah. So now with something like this, like, of course the government is going to be involved in a project like this. Why wouldn't they? Because if you develop this miracle cure, well, you're not just going to give it to everybody.
Yeah.
You're only going to give it to the people that can afford it, the ones that could pay for it. It's going to be hoarded just like everything else. You know?
The fact that insulin is so expensive is sickening. The guy that made the polio vaccine, he could have patented, and, you know, his children could be wealthy, but he donated it for free and said the world needs this. They don't really make people like that anymore.
Well, how Now, better question: if something was wrong with you, would you allow them to inject this in you?
I wouldn't be the first one.
You would let Brian would let you.
Well, it depends. If it was like a new organ, like if they could recreate like a liver and say drink all you want forever, I would. But like if they're like, we're gonna put this in you, it could either make you live to 1,000, which I also don't want.
It's a lot.
Or you'll be a zombie. We had this conversation the other day. If you could, it's actually terrifying to people don't realize if you could never die, like Fountain of Youth, live
right.
Because pretty soon the sun's gonna take over the shit. Imagine being alive and you're just like, ow, 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 and the sun's just takes over the earth. Like that's
what would you feel, Gene? What would your ideal like life be, living wise? Like 95?
Once I need a diaper, shoot me in the head if I need a diaper.
Okay, will do. It's on.
I agree with that.
I'm done. If I don't know who I am, like this sounds corny, but your memories really are all that you have in your life. So once you get like my grandma passed away from dementia, so I spent a lot of time in like her facility. And these people, like one lady was a college professor. She retired 5 years later. She's in this place, doesn't know what she did, doesn't know what she taught, just kind of scooting around. And I was like, that's the saddest thing. And they're keeping these people because it's inhuman to let them go. But like, that's what you're just, vegetable is not a good term anymore, but like, that's just, what's the point of living?
You aren't you anymore. Like
you're
not
right. Really quick to touch on like, how they'll stop any, like they won't allow people to become millionaires. Did you ever hear about Stanley Myers? Because I don't know if I ever talked about this with you, who created water as fuel instead of gasoline in the mid-90s. Yeah. So he created water as fuel. Now, we could all agree that everything kind of runs on oil, right?
Yeah.
In this world, like wherever our placement is and whatnot.
Fossil fuels. So
he actually demonstrated it on a dune buggy and claimed it was powered by his water fuel. On March 20th, 1998, he suddenly died while dining at a restaurant.
Of course he did. But everyone's like, that's totally reasonable.
Do you understand? Like, this guy actually found a way to be like, guys, we don't need gasoline anymore. I figured out a way to make water run machines. Everyone on Earth probably got wind of it. And then he suddenly dies in a restaurant.
Yeah.
I don't mean to laugh, but like, so he suddenly dies.
I wish he would have fell into a vat of oil.
Like, while dining at a restaurant, his brother claimed that during a meeting with 2 Belgian investors in a restaurant, Meyer suddenly ran outside saying they poisoned me. After an investigation, after an investigation, the coroner reported that he had high blood pressure and died of cerebral aneurysm. Meyer's supporters believe he was assassinated to suppress his inventions. He stated that he had been supporting Myers for years and he was a personal friend, and he has no clue where this rumor came from. The aftermath. Meyer's patents have now expired. His inventions are now in the public domain, and no engine or vehicle manufacturer has ever incorporated his work so far.
It's the same shit they did to Tesla.
Tesla literally, could you imagine what the world would be if energy was free for everybody? No oil. Everything was electric. Everything was free, but there's no money in free. We wouldn't have had all these wars. The Middle East wouldn't be destabilized. Well,
there wouldn't be as many rich. There wouldn't be as much discrepancy. Like there wouldn't be only like 10 people ruling the world. There's about 10 people who legit rule the fucking world.
Or if we could make everything, and that wouldn't be scary if we had machines automate everything. If energy was free and we could make machines make everything, we literally don't have to do anything.
That's a case where
build me a giant house, whatever.
I think you guys can both agree that I'm the least conspiracy one out of you three, right? We could both agree on that. Like,
you mean biggest
conspiracy when it's true?
Well, that's what I'm saying. But when you look at this, like that specific death and what he was inventing, there's
Yeah.
almost no way around like thinking, at least looking at that, like something's a little fishy here. Like
Or when Jeffrey Epstein killed himself in his cell.
right, but I even think that's more likely than this guy just having an aneurysm.
I love
Wouldn't
hearing.
you agree with that?
I'm not saying he didn't kill himself, but I love hearing people explain. Okay, so the two guards fell asleep at the same time. Okay, it's very difficult to be a guard to fall asleep with another buddy. Maybe you're out together last night. Okay, and then the cameras were out. All right, it's a big government facility. Maybe one camera goes out, which is his cell. All right, that's cool too. And they took everything away from him that he could have killed himself, but then there was something, and then he died, and they find him, and then he's dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. But would you say out of the two cases, so this guy who created water for gas, and then the Epstein case, do you think it's actually more likely he did kill himself rather than this guy dying of an aneurysm?
I think the guy that ran out yelling, they tried to poison me and then drop dead. I think that is a little more.
But even if you're the coroner there, you're not like, you're just going along with it at that point. If you even know what happened, it's like.
Yeah, but you don't even have to just go along with it. They probably have people specifically.
Right, yeah. Who could even
Look,
it might not have been a real coroner. Like
if you go on the FBI website, they have all of those documents of all the secret projects they worked on for the past 50 fucking years, right? Nothing, they didn't report to anyone. They were getting funding for all this stuff. That's called coming from tax dollars. They were never talking about it at all. So then one day they just put it all out and said, oh, okay, here's all the secret shit we've been doing for 50 years.
Yeah.
But people still want to say, no, we totally trust this government.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. Like
I don't get it. And I'm not like an anarchist person. I'm not like, oh, everything's got to be chaos and we shouldn't have government. We absolutely should have government because we couldn't fucking we could not govern ourselves in any way. It would be total fucking chaos. But what I'm saying is when it comes to shit like that, like if you have to second guess it for a minute, just remember that you can go to a website with hundreds of documents of all the secret projects, the LSD testing, the UFO files, the torture shit, all the things that are on there that they've done to people from other countries, spies, things like that. It's all there. That's what those people are capable of.
They used to tell African Americans that they're giving them medicine or something, a vaccine or something like that, and they gave them chlamydia just to do a test.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of that community doesn't want the vaccines and shit. Like they don't trust the medical practices, which is understandable. Like why the fuck, after the past shit that they've been through with the government in this country, I'd be hesitant too.
I need to fact check this, but there's two things that I saw a doctor come out and say. I need to fact check it. I'm just throwing this out there. Misinformation. But one thing, no matter what it is, if you were tested positive in the last, I believe, 60 or 90 days and you got hit by a bus and died, if you're tested positive with COVID, you're a COVID death.
Yeah.
2, the CDC changed it to if you get the vaccine and you die, you can't report any deaths from the vaccine, I believe, after 30 days. And everybody who dies from it is the first day.
The problem is, Eric, and Brian and I have talked about this. Once again, we can both agree that I've been extremely safe. You guys have been out with me. You've been a place.
We're here. Wore a mask in the corner when Kyle first met.
Yes, I have been the safest motherfucker out of almost anyone you've known. And the problem is what you just said is, let's say a doctor legit told you that because he has facts and he's presenting you that. You sound crazy to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Even though you have you have a guy who literally said, hey, this guy told me, people be like, you're crazy, man. You're a conspiracy theorist. It's
if you were a doctor, would you say anything?
I don't even know at this point. I don't know if you had the guy's water for fuel ingredient, would you do anything about it?
But I mean, more in the sense of I believe 100, it's not like a conspiracy. I believe 100% that is what the rules are. So if that's the rules, that you're moving the goalposts, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah,
this
absolutely.
guy said 17,000 people died from the vaccine, right? So he says in certain areas, more people are dying from the vaccine than COVID.
Right.
If that's the case, then that's the case. But if you're saying we don't mark it as a vaccine death until it's after 28 days, that's pretty much saying I'm going to shoot you in your stomach. All right, let me rephrase that. A murder, a gun violence murder doesn't count as a murder unless the person lives for 30 days. But if you shoot somebody in the head, that's a murder. That's it. That's a murder. We're saying they have to survive 30 days. So it's like that
goes with our point is sadly we'll never know the truth and we'll never actually know the real number. Like ever. We'll never know the real fucking number.
And it's sad though, because you can't bring that up, because I know people that knew very healthy people like us, 20s, 30s, and their fathers, very healthy, and they got COVID and died. And that is a COVID death. But
of course,
it's sad that it's like, because like we know somebody, I'm not going to say it here, but somebody in our group told us that their somebody's father was dying from like cancer.
Yeah.
Like was on their way out, was going to die any week, anytime, but they had COVID, and the family fought to make it not a COVID death. And then like my friend in the Marines, and he was like part of this whole thing, like when it came out, and he was like, no matter what, that's just how they do diseases, right? Like if any disease, if you die from, falling off a cliff and you have COVID, it's just more of a tracking. So when they say, look at the everything's up, it's like, are they actual deaths,
We'll never know for sure.